And good morning.
Good
We're back.
morning.
Hello, hello.
We
Happy
have
Monday.
our new co-host today. It's so exciting.
I know. I'm
Such a
so
beautiful
excited to be
day. And then we
here.
got Brandy. It's like all the listeners are gonna be like, whoa, there's somebody else's voice other than Will and Michael. About damn time.
Thank goodness.
I know. I'm pumped.
How
You're
was
back from gallivanting around the world, aren't you?
I am.
yeah,
I have. I will be in the United States for the foreseeable future, but that future could just be like a couple weeks. You never know.
you never know. Especially with you. It's always
When
like,
you're
what's next?
when you're Forbes 30 under 30,
Yeah,
the world is your oyster.
Yeah,
seriously.
yeah. I have like in 2 months did like just a wild amount of travel. I guess I'm making up for last time through COVID. So it was definitely a lot of fun. I got a nice
Well, how's
tan.
your experience with like the expat remote work type experience? Was it
Yeah.
good?
Well, the I was when I was in Portugal, I was trying to do like working from there. I did like 3 days, and I mean it's fine. It's just when you're in Europe, the time difference is difficult.
Yeah.
So I think if I was to go do that for a longer period of time, I'd have to kind of rework things. But for a couple days, it was, whatever I can do to stay on vacation longer, I will do.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the remote work trend is really geared towards freelancers and or developers. It's not
Yeah.
like front of office business units. It's just not good for unless you're willing to work terrible hours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like my days are like it's just a full calendar block meeting after meeting. So doing the like, yeah, it's not super fun taking calls at like 9 or 10 p.m.
No.
Yeah, especially when you want
Three
to have like a
bottles of wine
drink,
deep.
settle. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, three
exactly.
bottles.
Like how
Uh,
sober do I need to be for this meeting?
Pace yourself.
I love that. I love that. Well, outside of your travels, how's everyone's weekend? Good weekend. Rested, ready for a great Monday, or we're gonna go for it.
Yeah, I just relaxed. It was a low key weekend, ordered some takeout. I've been going a lot, like we just said. So it was nice to just kind of chill out.
For sure.
Same old for me. Nothing crazy or exciting.
You and the boy doing some three throws, or what
Man,
do you guys? What was going
we
on?
touched on all the sports. We played a little baseball, a little volleyball, a little basketball. Did some soccer this morning, so
Dude,
I'm excited. I'm signing him up for 3-year-old soccer today. So his first little organized sport.
I love that.
Michael, I have a little bone to pick with you, actually, or more a question. I heard on a podcast you did a couple weeks ago that you haven't checked a bag in like 10 or 12 years, but you have a child. Are you telling me that when you've flown with a kid, you've done all of that in just a carry-on? Seriously?
Yeah. You can gate check a stroller, so that'll be the one caveat.
Oh my gosh. I heard that and I was like, there's no way. There's no way. But okay. That's impressive.
2-week-long trips, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Seriously, I just when on this trip to Europe, I came back. I had like a higher luggage allowance on the way over, so my suitcase was pretty heavy, and then I maybe smuggled back a lot of wine, and it was an expensive suitcase.
Well, hope the wine's worth it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I can't do a check bag. The only time I've checked a bag was when I moved from Seattle to Denver. I did like 2 of them because it was free. So it's like, why not? Why not? Made it easy on the moving costs. But yeah, no check bags for me either.
I'd be too scared to check one right now.
That's true.
Especially right now. Yeah. Which we'll get into later in this episode. But I know we have a lot to cover because there's a lot that happened last week.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, let's kick it off. Story of the week.
Yeah. I was gonna say story of the week. Let's say hi to grandma and hit it with a bang. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I need more coffee. So let's go.
This week, software giant Muse, out of Europe, mostly in the hotel space, but does do a good bit of short-term rentals in a growing amount. They launched what they call Muse Ventures, which will be funding early stage companies in the hospitality space. So I partially love this and I partially hate it. I'll start with why I love it. They have data on who's using what softwares, the velocity of the software that's growing within their ecosystem. So they know, they're integrated with however many different companies. They know the adoption rates, the trends, where people are going. So I like it. They can kind of see things before they happen. I don't like that they are VC funded themselves and now turning into a VC shop. So it kind of, if I'm an investor in them, I would rather them focus on their business than focus on investing. So part love it, part hate it. Super cool to see, though. Excited to see where it goes.
I still love you, Richard and Matt from Muse. I still love it a lot.
I love it too. I'm just saying, if I'm an investor, I'd be a little bit worried as why you raised so much money to go deploy my money as venture investments.
Yeah.
I mean, a venture investment horizon is going to be 10 years, right? So
you think that they probably got approval from their investors before launching something like this, right? Like, if
sure
they've taken on that much money,
they're probably sitting on a pile of cash and they're sitting on some great data, so they could tell that story to the board and the board approves it. Mm-hmm. Without having all that insider knowledge as an outsider, if I'm giving millions of dollars to this company, I'd rather trust that I'm the better investor than the company that built the software company. It's kind of like a fast forward button for the two founders, because you exit a software company, then you go become a VC.
Yeah.
Now they're just like becoming a VC and still having a software company. So very fascinating. I don't know of anyone else that's kind of done this. I mean, you Airbnb had a bunch of investments, but I guess it could be a little bit similar to Airbnb's investments.
That's what came to mind initially.
But how many of those really worked out for Airbnb?
Yeah, that's
Hotel Connect is one, right?
Yeah.
Everything else didn't work out.
Yeah, it seems like a risky play, especially you think that they would get that investment to focus on their core competencies, but I suppose we'll see.
Yeah, something to keep watching.
Is data, right? Like I do think it's cool that they can be kind of on the tip of the spear of, there's a new pricing company and they're growing like crazy. We need to get on their cap table, and then we can open this up to the rest of the Muse portfolio. They're basically potentially building a closed ecosystem on their own without kind of a private equity roll up. So I like it better from a PMS play than I do, Airbnb investing in companies. But still feels a little weird having a venture arm inside of a venture-backed company.
Yeah. Well, it's good for us because then it's more stories to follow for later to see what's trending. So I'm down for it. Keep it up. Please invest more so we can
I'm also very curious what types of investments they'll do, because if they're writing in like first right of refusal clauses for acquisition, that's pretty interesting too. But early days, I haven't seen any of their contracts or seen any of their acquisitions or investments. So we'll find out.
But speaking of data, more funding coming into the space, which is exciting, and we'll announce with the first one that we saw last week. Key Data secured an additional $5 million in funding, so congrats to that team. And it's funny to see. I think Michael, you and I a couple times or a couple weeks before keep mentioning we're seeing more and more M&A activity rather than funding, and then all of a sudden last week it felt like we just saw a lot of money coming into the space. So yeah, very, very.
A lot of it's concentrated, though. There seems to be a hunger for data and pricing. So this week, Key Data and also Price Labs, if you want to pull that one up, Price Labs pulled in $30 million.
Which is no small amount at all for.
It's not small. It screams to me as probably growth equity more so than venture capital. But growth equity is what Beyond Pricing did however many years ago. We also saw earlier this year, Transparent and AirDNA sell. Wheelhouse brought in some money. So there's a trend of data there's big appetite for companies wanting data and investing in data. You haven't seen too many investments in property management companies this year, as an example.
Oh,
Yeah.
not shockingly, I think.
Well, I was gonna say,
the Picasso and Saunders stock tickers aren't really making investors clamor for property management companies.
yeah. I was gonna say, Brandy, what's your thoughts and feelings on all these, like all the funding coming into providers that potentially, property management companies like yourself use?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I love seeing that, vendors are obviously they're going to be improving their product. So if, one of those vendors is one that we use, and so obviously love seeing like our partners do well, and that in turn helps us do well. I hope that the appetite for investing in property management companies comes back, obviously, selfishly. And, of course, like Sonder and Big Casa just aren't really helping our case right now. But, there's time. I think if you can show that you're profitable, then those property management companies will be able to get that funding soon.
Yeah,
100%.
it's a theme Will and I've talked about a bunch on this show. Is like this year more so than any of the past 8 years I've been in the space. Like you have to be profitable.
Yeah.
The funding isn't dried up, obviously, as some of the news this week, but it's a lot more selective. There's not sprinkles getting passed around to everybody everywhere. Yeah. You need a solid business case, and these pricing companies have proven it, and it helps that Transparent and AirDNA sold earlier this year. So guess what? There's buyers out there for this kind of information. So that definitely helped key data, probably more so than Wheelhouse and Price Labs, but nonetheless, I mean, they're all data plays. So it's
the data portion. Sometimes it's difficult to aggregate all the data that you have. So having these systems that can make it easier instead of having to kind of put your own system together is incredibly helpful.
100%.
Yeah, it's one thing to have the data, but it's another thing to actually learn how and figure out how to use it and diagnose it and cut it up in different ways. And some companies don't look at data. Other companies have paralysis because of data, and there's just a middle ground that hopefully these companies are able to help people with. Just trust us. We're the professionals. You guys handle the turns and the operations of property management.
Yeah, that's why it was really interesting. And, I think we announced earlier last week or the week before that Jamie Lane, the VP of research and data from AirDNA, is going to be joining us every month. It's because like after he and we had a beer a couple weeks ago here in Denver, and just getting to hear that, it wasn't a conversation of just numbers where I was like, damn, what the hell is he talking about? Like, but he really can take it into a real application of the industry. And the cool part is that we can dive into more hotel and short-term rental data outside of just focusing on like hosts, right? Like I think we hear a lot of talk about hosts in the news, right? When it comes to Airbnb articles or whatever, but professional managers usually get more left out. So hearing like the data behind both host management companies, professionally scaled, operated brands, it's really cool. It's nice that it's not just a bunch of numbers and graphs that I don't really know how to follow all the time.
Yeah, so data is pointless if you don't know how to read it or understand it or apply it.
100%.
Well, we touched on I touched on Airbnb on the ventures side, and Will, I know you kind of do property management, but Brandy's much more of an expert in this segment. So
100%.
I'm excited to hear Brandy's take on this next article that Skift put out. So Airbnb has increased their host cancellation fees tenfold. First of all,
Yeah.
is that true? Because that seems outrageous.
I literally just heard about it when you sent me that article this morning. And I mean, it came out this morning. I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about this.
Please share.
So I think, I I know that recently there's been a lot of big publicity about hosts like canceling for no reason, like 1 minute before you're going to check in or, whatever. I would be first curious to know like what the actual percentage of those kinds of cancellations are. Like, obviously, that's a more juicy news story and that's going to get more people's attention. But how often is that really happening compared to like a legitimate cancellation, like, a pipe burst or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
So I understand that Airbnb is trying to do some damage control. Their reputation is taking a hit, and this is their response to that. So I get it from that perspective, but it always seems like it's a war against the hosts, which are the supplier of their product. And so, okay, you're giving something for the guest, but like, how are you helping the hosts more? And from my point of view, like Airbnb and the guests just like have you cornered. You're so dependent on reviews, and any little thing the guests can get refunded for. If a guest trashes a room, honestly, we rarely get that money back, and it's such a laborious process to go through. It's sometimes just not worth it for an operator like on our scale. If you're smaller, I can see that it might be worth it. But there's something simple like the changes to the Superhost platform. It is incredibly difficult for a large operator to maintain that status, even if you break up your accounts into smaller accounts or however you want to do it. The requirements are very difficult to fall in line with sometimes. And there has been for years we've been asking for this as professional hosts. Even as you like move up in terms of size, there really isn't more support for you. And so if you're going to start adding all of these other kind of penalties or rules, like help your suppliers out and people that are contributing hugely to your revenue. I think about the amount of money that we send Airbnb every month in commissions, and anytime I see this, I mean, obviously we're always trying to increase our direct bookings, but when I see this, it just makes me even more determined to lessen the amount of money that we give them every month.
You mentioned it's a war against hosts.
That might be dramatic, but
well, no, I think that's a
don't.
trend that's gone on for a long time. But
Yeah.
what jumps out to me on this one in particular, it's usually a war against professional hosts.
Mm-hmm.
Professional hosts aren't canceling day of unless there's like a very legitimate reason.
Yeah.
It happens
And they more or
often.
less.
It happens.
And they have a property to relocate them to. Sorry, I was just gonna say they have real inventory to actually make up for it. They don't just cancel and say sorry.
It happens more often in a hotel that you show up and they're fully booked than in a professional management company canceling day of. It just doesn't happen. So I think for the first time, Airbnb is actually going after the segment of the host population that they tout and that they believe in and that they want to aspire to be. And this could be an opportunity, Brandy, other property management companies out there, to beat the drum and say, Airbnb, this isn't us. Like, we have data. We haven't canceled a single booking in 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. And it is funny. You're right, like kind of the first time that the kind of mom and pop hosts are getting hit a bit more. And I just, also reading through that article, it seems very subjective. Like you can go and appeal it and there's different rules. And I also think that it's kind of crazy that we found out about this through a Skift article. Like I mean, I don't know. There's so many emails that if you're a host, that you get from Airbnb, but things like this should be very, very clearly communicated to their hosts. If you're an enterprise client, like we have an account manager, why was that not communicated? And so I think it's, if they're going to start implementing these new changes, get everybody on board, have some buy-in, explain why you're doing it, not having people find out at 7 a.m. from a Skift article,
right before
Well,
they
it's
go live on a
consistent.
podcast.
Yeah.
It's consistent with Airbnb though. Like their whole, and they've openly said this many times. Like they're a PR company.
Mm-hmm.
They're a PR machine. They will do anything for a headline that gets them in the news and gets them, their brand out there. And that's that. Like plain and simple.
Yeah.
Brian Chesky sending $100 million on stopping party houses. Where'd that money go?
Yeah, it's a great headline.
Yeah,
Great
where'd that
headline.
money go?
And from like a business perspective, from Airbnb's perspective, I understand why they do all of this. It is frustrating as the years have gone on that the relationship is not like that one of partnership, but one of like, we are the keys to your revenue and we're going to do what we want and you don't really have a choice. And I know there's many operators that are solely reliant on Airbnb. And so they're like, yeah, I guess I don't really have a choice. So I just think it would be, if they're going to implement these changes, do so in a way that feels more collaborative or, at least attempt it. They're good at PR. They can spin something that makes you, give a little bit more buy-in.
Yeah. And, we've probably a lot of people are really harsh on Airbnb. They send bookings, right? That's their job to send bookings. It crosses over into not good when they control payouts, when they don't allow their property managers or property owners to control the funding on their own property. So there's some things that I'd like to see them tweaked, but at the end of the day, they do a great job of doing their job, which is get people bookings.
Yeah, no, they do. Yeah, they're great at that. And so I think for bigger operators, it's kind of figuring out how you diversify your income streams and where you're getting that revenue from. And then just looking at the changes, and you have to adapt to them, because you're not going to, like, me writing a strongly worded email to my account executive isn't really going to do anything. So, you just have to adapt. And I guess we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks and see what kind of fees are imposed.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say it's interesting because Michael, I think you sent me a post of host, an individual host, smaller operator, hasn't been paid out for months. So she has like $100,000 of owner payouts as well, not just her own, percentage that she takes home, but she's got $100K wrapped up in Airbnb that she is going out of business for because they say, "Oh, be patient. Our trust team is gonna take care of
No one
this."
even responds.
Yeah. So like my thing is, if you are driving bookings and you're great at your job at doing that, then you need to fulfill on the back end of that, because a host like her can't, like, she doesn't care if she's getting bookings now because she's not getting paid.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
if I'm not getting paid, I don't want to do it. Especially
it's
my
tough to
owners.
tout
That's
that you care about the small business or the small host or the individuals, and also do that on the other side. I wonder how much of it is a staffing issue and they just don't have heads to respond to people, or how much is designed. Like, Brandon, you mentioned not getting paid out on parties. That's by design. The insurance arm of Airbnb is like every other insurance company.
For sure.
You're going to have to jump through 10 hoops, walk up a ladder backwards. Like, it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, like, if you're going to tout, we support hosts and you support the small business owners, then, give them the money.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's been rough, and we'll try not to go into this whole episode of digging on Airbnb, but it's kind of some
It's
stuff
so
like it's so easy, and it's just like, why? Yeah, for the biggest travel company out there, they should have their excuse my French, their shit together a little bit more when it comes to just this. Yeah, I think it needs to be more of a partnership. The way that they're going about it is so wrong, and yeah, they drive bookings, but at the end of the day, there's really no other value outside of.
Well, you say that, but again, I'll play both sides of the fence here, because I'll bash on it, but then I'll also support it. As a traveler, fantastic.
Oh yeah.
You don't want to show
Yeah,
up and
100%.
have your host. First of all, as a traveler, don't book with single hosts, because the risk of these things happening is higher. The risk of non-standardization is higher. So coming in the industry, I know to book with professionals. But as a traveler, like, all the things that Airbnb is doing, it's a great thing. And that's why they get bookings, because you can make up any reason and Airbnb will back your side as a traveler and kind of screw over the property manager of the
And
host.
I've actually I obviously in my friends and family, they know that I'm now in this industry, and I have helped people get out of crazy situations because I'm I know exactly what you need to say. And also as a traveler, the interface is great. I mean, it is kind of it's a love and frustration relationship. I won't say hate, but I totally, from a traveler's perspective, it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, not to give too much of a sneak peek into next week's episode, but we have a guest joining us named Mark. He's the founder of Minoan, and we talked about on our Slick Talk podcast a couple weeks ago how Amazon patented the one-click purchase, one click done, the buy now, they patent that whole thing. And I think Airbnb is on that track of click, click, boom. It's what, 2 to 3 clicks? Yeah, 3 clicks to get booked. So compared to any Shopify, Etsy, any other even vacation rentals, if you look at to make a direct booking, it takes I would say up to 20 clicks, if not more, to get all of your information filled out. Unless you're like me, I have my auto filler thing, so I just type in my name and hopefully all the other fields will get filled in. But it's if they don't get filled in, it's a lot of work. And I even posted something on Instagram the other day that a lot of people reacted to, which was if your website says call for pricing, I would rather just never think or see your website ever again. Just because people just want to book and get it done. They want the information right there. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting that as we saw Vrbo become the top 10 most downloaded or the top downloaded travel app and also their stuff, are they actually going to be driving real value outside just bookings? Because the guest side, that's easy, but I would say what's the other perk from our side of the
Brandy,
spectrum?
anecdotally speaking, that was one of our topics last week. Would love to know if Sexton has seen it. Last year, Hopper was touting the most downloaded app, yada yada. The past 6 months, it's been Vrbo. Has there been any transition of fewer bookings on Airbnb and more on Vrbo or more on Hopper?
No, not at all. I don't know the Hopper data right off the top of my head because that kind of just went live in their Miami market recently. But with Vrbo, we get almost 10 times as many Airbnb bookings as Vrbo, and that's been consistent since January, at least for this year. And so, I mean, we're getting minimal bookings, and it's we're an urban operator. We have some single family homes or a couple of unique penthouses, and those do really well on Vrbo, but I just think that our product isn't really what people are looking for on that site. I'll be curious now that more people are downloading it if we do see that shift, but it would take a lot for Vrbo to supersede Airbnb for us.
Yeah,
totally agree. Makes sense. It makes sense. We have single family homes near Seattle, and those do really well on Vrbo because usually the traveler is a married couple coming to visit their kid that's graduating from WSU, or they're doing a family reunion. They're more or less like that group booking travel where it's there for an event rather than a romantic getaway or just even a work remote trip, versus the Airbnb, in our one property in Kissimmee is heavy Airbnb. We don't get any Vrbo. It's
yeah,
the point, it's almost kind of
even
pointless
in
to have that channel on. Yeah, for me, it's we haven't seen any Vrbo bookings come, and they're both optimized for each channel. So I don't know. It's very interesting. Could be a fluke. Could be the the very what do you call the outlier? Could be a very much an outlier case, but yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I would love for any of our live audience members. We've got quite a few of you tuning in, sending in comments. Paula from Brazil. We got Andrew from the Isle of Man, and we got quite a few other people on. So would love to hear your thoughts because obviously this is an interactive show. So you can always comment below on the live stream wherever you're at. If you're listening to the audio version of the replay, you can always send us a message on any of your favorite social media platforms. Any other thoughts before we wrap stuff up today from you two?
No, we didn't even get into European travel.
I know. That was kind of the bummer.
That's good. European travel's great, and now's the time to go.
Exactly.
Yes.
The dollar parity is very nice. You don't have to worry about bankrupting yourself on fancy dinners or anything.
Expect delays, don't check a bag, and be flexible with your travel. So
Exactly.
Yes. More on that next week.
I'm super interested and excited to track this Muse thing. I'm curious to learn what types of businesses they're looking for. And my guess is they've already invested in a couple, and they're going to try and get a news cycle going around it since this just went out. But I think it could be good for the industry at a time when it's going to be challenging for the early stage non-profitable companies to build and grow.
Hopefully they're going with companies that have that are more for the operator side rather than just the data side. I think data is great and we love it, but we definitely should see more investment on the actual tools that help operations, because that will help revenue and that will help all the other stuff that goes
or niche hotel brands. I know a great one that they could probably put some money into.
100%.
We'll talk.
Awesome. Well, exciting first episode with you, Brandy. I know again we didn't get to the European travel, but just wanted to say we're super excited to have you as our co-host and joining us throughout the next coming months. Can't wait to actually do this in person at Verma. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, on the Book Direct show in Miami. So we got a lot to look forward to.
I know. A conference in my hometown. That's zero travel time is perfect.
Yes.
Oh, but that's the worst, because then you have like your home responsibilities too.
Yeah, that is true. Well, my home responsibilities are taking care of a cat, so it's minimal work.
Very minimal work, but she's got a great list of food or like restaurants and bars and all this stuff. So I'm expecting some a little bit of a tourism kind of like play.
Oh
here.
yeah, I'm ready to be a tour guide. I'm pretty good at it.
I love it. I love it. Well, again, thank you, Brandy. For all of our listeners watching live, thank you for tuning in, commenting, and submitting like your comments and thoughts. And we'll see you guys again next week. We do have a guest, Mark, who is the founder of Minoan. The week after that, we have Jamie from AirDNA. So there's a lot to look forward to in the next coming weeks. And we'll see you all again very soon.